In this video, we're going to be looking at an app called Notion and how we can use that to help us stay organized as we are trying to memorize the Bible and keep track of all the things we've memorized and when we memorize them and when they're next due for review. So we've got a blank page here in Notion. We're going to call this Bible Memory. Now, I will say at this point, Notion is basically a application that allows you to create pages or notes. But one of the really useful parts of Notion is it allows you to create notes with databases in them. So we're actually going to just create a blank page. We're going to press enter and we've got a blank page and we're going to just start typing just a list of things. So maybe we're going to type just an outline of our plan to memorize Galatians. So we want to memorize Galatians. And just like we could in any other text editor, we can create an indented list by pressing tab. And we're going to focus on chapter 1 to begin with. And we recognize that chapter 1 is quite a long chapter, so we're actually going to break it down into sections. And you can see what I'm using Notion for here is really to just create a simple outline. And this is something that we could actually do in most text editing apps. But I'm just showing how easy it is to do it in Notion. Okay. And obviously we could then go through and create an outline for the rest of the book. And we're not going to do that here. I'm going to leave that. But that is how we would create an outline in Notion. But that is not really the main thing that Notion is powerful for. We could, if we wanted to, create a checklist. So rather than doing an outline like that, we could press the slash command and type in to do and create a to-do list and do the same thing. So we're going to memorize Galatians. And within that, we are going to memorize, and again, I'm pressing tab to indent this, chapter 1. And again, within that, we are going to be memorizing our parts of chapter 1. All right, so this is another way that we can create an outline. And the reason this is perhaps more useful is because we can actually tick things off as they're done. So if once we're done memorizing Galatians 1 verses 11 to 17, we can just tick that off and we're done. And once we've ticked off all of the components in chapter 1, we can just tick off chapter 1. So this is a much easier way to track our progress. But another useful thing that we can do in Notion, again, we're looking to create an outline, we might notice very quickly that, if we have everything visible at once, we can have a very long document, particularly if we're memorizing a long book. So we can actually create something called a toggle. We're going to press the slash command again and type in toggle. We're going to create a toggle list. And we're going to call this one memorize Galatians. And within that, so we're going to open this. And within that, we're going to have Galatians 1. Actually, maybe before we do that, we're going to make this a toggle as well. And this is one of the things that we can do in Notion with toggles is we can actually embed a toggle within a toggle. So now we have memorized Galatians, we've got chapter 1, and now we might create a checklist in here. So we type in slash command and type in to do and create a to-do list. And again, type in our list of Galatians 1 verses 1 to 5 and so on. All right, so what we've done up to this point is we've utilized 3 different ways of outlining within Notion. We've got the outline based on just a simple list. We've got the outline based on indenting a collection of checkpoints. We've got an outline based on using toggle lists so that we can hide each of our sections just to make our page look a little bit neater. But each of these has its limitations. So for example, with a list and a to-do list, we see everything at the same time. But if we kind of integrate that with a toggle list and kind of use bits and pieces of each type, we can create a much more useful thing. So we can utilize the advantages of showing and hiding sections if we use toggle lists, while still keeping our to-do list functionality largely as we keep these checkpoints. And if we really wanted to, we could actually add in one here. We could create another to-do list point at the top and just call this chapter 1. Or maybe we could call it a whole chapter. And once that's memorized, we tick that off as well. And we could, as we saw, just indent all of these. That is if we just wanted to have some way of checking off that we've memorized chapter 1. Okay, so all of this, as I said, is methods of outlining a book to keep track of what we've memorized. But none of this helps with remembering when we need to review something, or it doesn't help if we want to have a more complicated set of information. And another thing that we can use in Notion, which I've already hinted at, is databases. And we'll go through them in more detail in a future video, but in this video, I'll just show you how to introduce them. Type in a / command and you can type in database. I've just typed in data and you can see there are many types of databases. You can either create a inline database, so there's visible on this page, or I can create a full page database. At this point, we're just going to do an inline database. And what we're going to do, we're going to call this one Memorize Galatians. And we are going to, rather than splitting it up as an outline like this, we're actually going to just go down to the smallest level straight away. So Galatians 1 verses 1 to 5. And then we're going to type in the next one, Galatians 1 verses 6 to 10, and so on. But the benefit of having databases is we can store information horizontally instead of vertically. So whereas before we indented everything underneath as a appropriate section, now we can actually create a property. We've already got one here called tags. I'm going to change this to a select list and going to rename it and call it chapter. And we're going to say that both of these are part of chapter 1. Okay, and so suddenly our information is being stored in a more concise manner in terms of the amount of page space it's taking up. So in the next video, we're going to go and look a bit deeper at databases and how we can use them to help us keep track of what we've memorized and keep track of when we need to memorize something next. And we'll just look at some of the other features of databases in the next video. So we'll see you there.